jàmm réew mi moo gën ci réew mi wax ju bon ji day yàq réew mi jëf ju baax ji mooy defar réew mi.
Okay, thank you, Mikel, for that wonderful speak on Africa is Crying. So now we come to the question and answers. Mikel, I have a lot of questions for you today.
Okay.
How do we ensure steady financing for our significant needs for sustainable development in Africa?
Well, thank you for the question. Thank you so very much. This is one of the crucial areas that Africa has problem. When you talk about ensuring steady financing, what you do is just give preference to the right kind of issues that government needs. How do you start by doing that? Put people into financial management that have the requisite attitude, commitment, the patriotic spirit to manage the country money. People who are not corrupt. But when you start to make someone finance minister, you give him position of authority to the people based on some of the sentiments I mentioned, the regionalism, the tribalism, nepotism, and all that. Then you see that the country keep wrapping in the same shadows. You have leaders coming in, leaders going out with no element of change. But if we expect our nations to grow, what do? We decentralize opportunities. But when you look at like Nigeria now, the greatest focus of Nigeria is the oil industry. But Nigeria has granite. Nigeria has different natural resources that she can be able to tap into that generates revenue for national government growth and development. But all we need to do is employ people based on merit. Give opportunity to people who have the passion, the devotion, and patriotic spirit to serve the nation. People who are not corrupt, so that if they are attached to the responsibility of managing the finance of the state, they have no mindset of the pocketization mentality. Their greatest focus is the Nigerianization mentality. The greatest focus is the Gambianization mentality. Their greatest focus is the Liberianization mentality. And the Gambianization mentality is the mentality of what unison. It's a mentality of what? Absolute management, conceiving the nation as their common vertex, as the common denominator. That this money is meant for this project. It must be utilized for that project. It doesn't concern me. It is not for me. I don't need to put it in my pocket. And government will design policies for corrupt leaders to be punished. And no one must be an exception to the laws. But in Africa, we have the mentality that, do you know who I am? When you say no car is allowed to pass here, even if the minister comes, he parks his car and he walks and crosses. But if you say no car is allowed to pass and the common man brings his car, then he parks and he walks. If a deputy minister comes with his car, then what's he do? He passes there, he goes his way because he's a deputy minister. Then you cannot be able to make the system grow. So if you expect to have an adequate financial utilization for the success of our very economy, it means that people must be tasked with the responsibility of managing our financial areas with the mandate to serve the people, not to steal from the masses. The president should not bring in his own boy, so to speak. It must bring in someone to serve the Gambian people, someone who has the understanding of economics, who understands the yearnings and aspirations of people, so that finances that are meant for a particular project can be utilized for that sole responsibility and not for one particular person's interest. You look at a lot of our projects on the continent, supported by multinational corporations. I don't know if you know that previous years, 50% of Gambia budget used to be controlled by multinational corporations, tourism groups around the world. But what is happening right now? You are taking your own responsibility. That's the best way forward. Now, what must Adam Barrow do so that your finances go into the right position? Anyone who is found corrupt must what? Be dealt with according to the laws of the state. The Constitution must not be bent for man to stand. Men must be bent for the Constitution to stand. That's the best way forward.
Thank you for answering that question perfectly.
Thank you.
And the other question is that, how can we Africans truly diversify our economy?
Just like I said in the previous question that you asked, the Gambia now you have what? Cashew nut. You have what? The Ministry of Fishery. Not so? These things are not being adequately tapped into. But regrettably and sadly in Africa, with the specific to my own country, Liberia, the country has become negatively politicized. That an average Liberian that studied something very far, maybe agricultural science or what have you, he doesn't leave the walls of university and practicalize the agricultural science that he or she studies. What he does is that Once they must have graduated from university, what they do is they look for the political party to get themselves attached to that. Almost all young people in Liberia have become politicians by practical actions without necessarily studying political science sometimes. So what do we need to do? We need people who select courses or discipline based on passion and conviction. When you study agricultural science, you need to ask yourself, is this what I have the passion for? Is this what I really want to do? So that when you leave the walls of university, you can be able to justify what you were taught. Then you can practicalize that. The man who studied agricultural science can go and open his own agricultural plantation. He can seek support from people in the community, and we must be willing and prepared to invest into our system. The fisheries sector in your country, agricultural sector in your country. How many young people want to venture into those areas of discipline? Everybody wants to become minister of finance. Everybody wants to start banking and finance. Everybody wants to become business managers. We need to be able to utilize or tap into other sectors of national government that have not been utilized. Those virgin areas that need high concentration. That's how we yield revenues for the growth and development of our respective nations. In the absence of that, everybody discussing politics, everybody discussing the ministry, everybody wants to be the finance minister, everybody wants to be minister of state for presidential affairs. You can't change a country when people are not willing and prepared to commit themselves to disciplines that they have the calling for. The only way you can be able to change our respective nations is to diversify our thinking. All the sectors of national government. People must be able to invest, the government must be able to invest resources there. Education, the health sector, pump in the money there and get the right human resource base to manage the affairs of these institutions if you expect adequate growth and sustainability. That's the best way forward for Africa.
Okay, Mr. Howard, as you know, in Africa, employment opportunity is very difficult for the youths here. So how do we improve the quality of growth and create job opportunities?
One of the best way forward is that we build our education sector. The more educated an individual is, the less arrogant and aggressive he becomes. One of the major reasons why Africa remains a dependent continent on other outside communities is because we have not been able to optimize the human resource capacity of our young people. Until our respective nations can build our educational sector and our health sector, this continent cannot grow. You cannot have quality jobs given to young people because they lack the requisite charisma to be able to execute these functions. But if you build the educational sector, not just the facility, because the beauty of an institution does not lie in the architecture of the institution. It lies in the products of that particular institution. You build good institutions. It's not enough. What do you need to do? Employ quality teachers. Train your teachers. When you employ quality teachers, what do you need to do? You give them the right salaries as per motivation. So that if I am to be paid $5,000, the money is small. But the money is supposed to come on the 24th of the month. Does it come on the 24th of the month, or you've owned me for 3 to 4 months without paying? If you are owing me 2 to 4 months without paying, what do you need? What do you result me into? I end up collecting bribe from the students. And if I collect bribe from the students, a student that knows that he or she needs to bribe the teacher has little or no reason to study. And if he or she fails to study, what happens? They leave the walls of high school, leave the walls of tertiary institutions with qualification by paper. But the qualification is not in the mind. Their minds are not transformed. Their minds are not changed because their minds have already been criminalized. They've already been taught the doctrine of stealing in school. They spy just to have a pass. They bribe just to have a pass. So that when they leave the walls of institution, they lack the attitude. They lack the commitment. They lack the devotion. They lack the qualification in their mind to be able to affect change. So even if you employ a Fatima Moloshi, that bribes her way through, that bribes her way through to the walls of university. She sits behind a computer and sleep the whole day without doing anything in her respective position. So what do we need to do? We need to build our education system. And our ministers, our directors, those that are held in position of authority must be able to trust the system. They treat themselves outside in hospitals in other nations of the world. If they are okay, if they are satisfied with the health sector, why don't they treat themselves? Why don't they treat their children here? If they are satisfied with the education system, why don't their children attend the schools? But they won't allow the children to attend the schools because the education system is broken. And once it is broken, their children studied abroad, get the best quality education, come back here after 2-3 years and have the best job and seize the best opportunity from you because what? You lack the requisite qualification because you come from a broken institution. So my message to Adama Barrow, my message to George Wood of Liberia, to Judas Matabio of Freetown, Sierra Leone, to Azali Asuman in the Comoros, to Paul Kagame of Rwanda, even though he's trying his level best, to Faure Iyadima of Togo, to Muhammadu Buhari, is to make sure that they consider the young people. The guy says that it is easier to build strong children than to what? Repair broken men. Respect our young people. They are the future leaders. When do you want them to lead? When they are in the 60s? It is now. If it has to be now, then it means that we need to make sure that we revamp our education sector. And if a man is not well, he cannot go to school. So go back to the health sector. Our pregnant women are dying on a daily basis in hospitals because of poor health facilities. You have medical practitioners who personalize the medical equipment, the drugs, and carry to the very homes because what? They work as doctors and they are not paid. And some of them choose the medical profession not based on passion and commitment, but because of the finance that is into it. So they don't know it well. So you must have an effective system that respects the details of the work. You might have professional people. You might have people who have the requisite passion and commitment to do their work with due diligence. Committed people. People who respect the work. Patriotic citizens. That's the best way forward for this continent. In the absence of that, we're going to nowhere and we're going to keep crying.
All right. What are the possible solutions to the problem of education and the healthcare system?
Just like I says, employ a minister of education that has been in that system for too long, not only for too long, but he or she understands the rudimentary concepts of education. Government must allocate funds in that particular sector of national government education. Because when people are educated, when young people are educated, what happens? Their mind becomes independent. And once their minds are independent in thinking, what do? They don't wait for national government to put food on their table. They utilize the educational opportunities and become entrepreneurs and provide for their respective nations. Until we are willing and prepared to build the minds of our respective citizens, we go nowhere. We must be able to trust and believe and respect our young people. That can only come with efficient leaders, effective leaders. That's the best way forward.
And Mr. Howard, in your speech, you made mention of broken spirit of patriotism.
Yeah.
What are the solutions that should stop this broken spirit of patriotism?
We just need to go back on the drawing board. That if Mr. Mikel Howard is lucky to be appointed as a director of finance, a minister of finance in his country, he must understand that Liberia is greater than him. That's what I spoke about, the pocketization mentality. People have lost that spirit of love and passion for their respective nations. They consider the personal interest. What can my family get? What can my children get? What can my aunts get? What can my uncles get? What can I get for myself? They put aside what does Liberia get. We need to go back to the drawing boards. Like I normally say in some public symposium, that all of the solutions in our respective nation, if we can be able to recite our national anthem, you see that we all going to be guilty in our hearts. Because when you look at the national anthem of Liberia that says, all hail Liberia, hail, all hail Liberia, hail. This glorious land of liberty, shalom, be ours. It doesn't say this glorious land of liberty, shalom, be Tony Mikel Howard only. It doesn't say this glorious land of liberty, shalom, be the particular tribe in the country. When you go back to the Gambia national anthem and say, well, for the Gambia, our homeland, right? For the Gambia, our homeland, we strive and work and pray. So that what? You know the rest of the story. So are we practicalizing our national anthem from our hearts, or we just recite it merely? If you go to your national code of honor, you recite your national anthem, you understand that you have a responsibility to your state. And if we come to the democratic system that says a government of the people, for the people, and by the people, then the people have an adequate responsibility, just as their government also has a responsibility. But the wrong assumption in Africa is that any man or woman who assumes the seat of the presidency becomes the lone driver of the state. It's a mistake. When we vote people into power, we now sit back and say that they need to put food on the table. We'll sit back and say that they are the only people responsible for the success of this country. No, Adama Barrow is not the lone person that should develop the Gambia. The growth and development of the Gambia starts with every single Gambian up to the presidency. The cleaner in homes, Our mommies must be able to cultivate the habits of peace. That if I'm a Mandinka, I should be able to sit with the Wolof person and say, Nangadef, for Ineka Legi. If you are Mandinka, the Wolof person should sit with the Mandinka and say, what? And speak Mandinka to you. Sure. You understand that? Speak Mandinka, understand the next person's tribe. Put aside your tribal differences. Unite yourselves together. The Fulas should hold together. The Fulas should respect the Mandinkas. The Manjakos should respect the Karonikas. The indigenous Liberian must respect the American Liberians. Put aside all the tribal differences and decide that the spirits of atrocity must be revamped. That's the best way forward. The Yoruba in Nigeria should put aside the tribal distraction. They are the intellectuals. The Igbos are the commercial people that make business. The Hausa are the agriculture people. Now, bring together your professional and academic expertise for the common goods of Nigeria. Bring together the Wolof, the Mandinkas, the Kalonika, the Manjaku, and whatever tribe they say, the Jahankas. Put aside the tribal links and consider the Gambia as a common denominator, because that is the only country you can never be deported from. We need to revamp our broken spirit. We need to get our spirit of patriotism back intact if we expect to develop our respected nation. Nobody going to come from outside and develop Africa. In several nations that have been invited to speak, I talked to the citizens that we have a responsibility. I was in Freetown, Sierra Leone. I spoke about the unwanted pregnancy that Africa must abort. That unwanted pregnancy of one broken spirit of patriotism, the unwanted pregnancy of corruption, the unwanted pregnancy of tribalism, the unwanted pregnancy of nepotism, the unwanted pregnancy of laziness, the unwanted pregnancy of dependency syndrome. Africa must delete or omit these things from the mind if we expect our respected nation to grow. In the absence of that, we are going nowhere. We're going to keep crying as a continent people.
Okay, Mr. Howard, in your speech, you made mention that when Africans have new presidents, the first thing they normally do is to go to other countries like China to be begging them to develop their country. So do you think Africans can survive without depending on other developed nations?
We have the potential. Our mindset is a problem. As St. Thomas Aquinas says in philosophy, he says the height of a man is not from the hair to the toe. The height of a man is from the neck to the hair. That's our problem. Our mindset. Little Gambia, what's the population? Less than 2 million people, or at least 2 million people. Liberia, 5 million. Sierra Leone, 7 million people. Senegal, almost 14 million people. Nigeria, almost 200 million people. And all of these nations have potential. They have young people with talents, immeasurable talents. Our government must be able to utilize the potential of our young people, optimize the human resource capacity, invest into the system, invest into the education system, invest into the agricultural system, invest in what? Small businesses, so that people have an independent mindset. Because once the people become independent, once the people are schooled and well educated, they have little no mind to borrow outside. But a lazy mindset, the dependency syndrome starts with our leaders themselves. They wear diplomatic suits and wear the and fly the aircraft and fly it outside and think that the solution is outside. Africa's problems is Africa's responsibility. You can beg for 10, 15, 20, 50 billion dollars and come back to our continent. You cannot be able to change our continent if you do not have responsible leadership. You can have all of the trillions back in our respected nation. You cannot be able to make a successful change if we don't change our mindset, if we don't enact the spirit of patriotism, if we do not elect people who have the requisite qualification, the competence and capacity to run the affairs of the state. When we got corrupt people in the system can never grow, even if we borrow all over the world. Africa must change their mindset by respecting and understanding the fact that young people are the future leaders, and they must be able to utilize the kind of talent, the skills and ability. Do you know how many young people die on a daily basis with their skills, their talent, unseen by the rest of the world? Do you know what's carried inside of you? Do you know what a young Gambian outside here has inside of him or her? Do you know what a young Liberian has inside of him or her outside here? Young people under the sound of my voice, you know the talent, the skills and ability, but they sit in the street, they beg in the street because of nothing is happening, because the leadership has come to an understanding that until we fly to the Western world, until we go to China. Look at Zambia now. The Zambia Broadcasting Corporation, the national airport, is under the umbrella of China because they borrowed from China until they borrow their future. That's why Professor Lumumba was requested at a university to travel to that country and speak on China and the Africa policy. the government brought him entry into Zambia. Because the leader, if he has spoken, he would have tempered with the relationship of Zambia and China relationship. That's the dependency mentality. My own mom in Liberia, my own George Weah, he travels around the world seeking loans to build up a nation. The problem didn't start today, but we can find something about it and start to believing and respecting ourselves and believing our young people, utilizing the potential, building our system, spending the money for the right purpose, employ the right kind of people to have position of authority, not based on friendship, not based on tribal instructions, not based on political affiliation, not based on regionality, but based on character, competence, and capacity. In absence of that, we are going nowhere as a continent and people.
Okay, my question for you today is that what do you think African leaders should do to solve all these problems that you made mention of? This corruption, the nepotism, etc.
It doesn't even start with the president. It starts with you and I, the voters. We need to close our eyes on the pocket mindset. Because when time for election comes, and a politician moves into your company and gives 2-3 bags of rice to vote him or her into position of authority, and you forget the bigger picture that this is not about me. I might be 60 years old, but my kids are 17, 18, 19. If I sell my vote for someone who doesn't deserve to be there, what happens to the future of my children? So we must be able to elect, but we the voters must develop a responsible mindset, responsible voting process, that we vote people into authority who have the right mentality for the state. There will be substantial justification that they have proven beyond reasonable doubt that we are crime free, corrupt free, with the spirit of patriotism intact, who have love for the nations, not thieves. We need to know ourselves as a continent people. Where do we come from? We were being enslaved too many years ago. We have the liberty. Yet Jawara give you independence. And I know we have people who fought for our independence. We have it, and what do we do with it? We have a responsibility. Utilizing the potential of our young people. It starts with the electorates. Then leaders, when you become president of the state, you do not make elections of your political parties, not for technocrats. If they require you traveling outside Gambia, there are potential Gambian outside here. They want to come back to their country to contribute their own quota to nation building. But it's okay, this is UDP. So all of our UDP brothers should be in a position of authority. When a leader speaks with such volume, he's living in error. You say GDC, all of my GDC brothers, because I'm a minister now, I bring my brothers in this office to work. Even if they lack the qualification, we go to nowhere with such elemental mindset. When you are given a matter of responsibility, bring people on the table who have the requisite mindset, the right qualification, the right sense of thinking for the common goods of all Gambians, for the common good of all Nigerians, for the common good of all Ghanaians, for the common good of all Liberians, for the common good of all Senegalese, not for the common goods of your own individual interests. If you do that, you are not different from the team who breaks people's house at night.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Howard, on answering all my questions properly. So, what do you have to tell the audience?
What I can say to the authority of this media house is that I am so grateful for the opportunity to decentralize the work of the Africa Philosophical Foundation, a Pan-African foundation that is built on 3 important pillars: inspiring and motivating the current generation of young Africans in the actualization of their respective dreams, preaching the message of peace and national unity, and revitalizing Africanization policy that speaks about good governance, social justice, democracy, and human rights in African unity. So it is for you. APFI belongs to you. It's an institution that is meant to utilize the potential of young people, to recognize the intelligence of young people, to speak truth to governance, so that African leadership can understand that they have a responsibility. We'll keep them on their toe. So what I say to you, one of the sound of my voice, is that every Saturday morning, 8 p.m. on Zambian Magazine and Zambian TV, so that you get the best out of the African Philosophical Findings. And I appreciate the Gambian people, because every time that I step my leg in this country, I have provided the right platform to prove to the rest of Africa and the rest of the world that the continent belongs to us. And you have young people here with the greatest potential. All you need to do is utilize the potential,
Government put policies in place that protect our young girls, put policies in place that protect our people. If the minister travels outside, he has security protecting him all over the place. Then who protects the common man in the street? Who is the security of the common man in the street? The security of the common man in the street is opportunities. It's opportunities. Providing the right opportunity to become independent. That's the best security. Because every government has two responsibilities in international relations. The sole responsibility of any government is security and survival of its citizen. And the security and survival is boiling around providing adequate opportunities for the citizen to survive. Because the country belongs to all Gambians. Liberia belongs to all Liberia. Senegal belongs to all Senegalese. So the best way forward is that we utilize the potential of our young people, see them on the sound of my voice, and I appreciate you for following us live today and catch up next week, Saturday. Thank you very much. If you like, follow us.
Okay, thanks to the general public and all our followers on Facebook and all the social medias. Catch you next week, every Saturday, 8 p.m. on Serbian's VIP TV. Thank you.
wax jàmm réew mi moo gën ci réew mi wax ju bon ji day yàq réew mi jëf ju baax ji mooy def